Hi and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm in the amazing Dyfnant Forest, which is actually one of the lesser known areas of North Wales. Absolutely stunning. And I'm going to be talking about manual mode from two angles. The first one is how to get into manual mode, how I and why I use it, and also get you off of automatic or aperture priority, but also to how to become more creative with manual mode as well. And this is absolutely perfect. We've got some great lines through this bridge down the stream. We've got some great lines in the other direction as well, where the sun is. It's a little bit overcast today, which is absolutely brilliant. We've got some great contrast through the sky. So let's get started. I'll get my camera set up. And as ever, I'm on location and I'll share the images that I capture today and how I've captured those. Here we've got our first composition that I want to talk to you about manual, and I'll take it in an auto mode, or aperture priority initially, and show you the metering of that. But my composition here is looking under the bridge, up the stream, to the waterfall at the end, where the sun is catching the waterfall at the end as it comes through the trees. So we've got quite a high contrast, and I've got my circular polarizer on. I really want to cut out the glare but enhance the reflections. So let's take a look at this exposure in aperture priority first, and then we'll take a look at it in manual mode. So here we can see I've got the camera set to AV mode, aperture priority at the moment. But what we can see in the metering, I use evaluative metering by default if I use AV, which is not that common. But you can see we've got a spike on the right-hand side of the histogram. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the video. But let's capture that. And what we can see is at a third of a second, F9, what we can see here, we've got quite a bit of burnout in the reflection and the actual waterfall itself. We've got some nice leading lines though created. So let's now switch this to manual mode. And once we've switched to manual mode, we can really get control of our image. We can see here we've got the shutter speed. We've got full control of the shutter speed. We've got the aperture. We have full control of the aperture. And also we've got the ISO. I've got it on ISO 100. We've got full control of the ISO, so we can really start to get creative, and I'll cover some of those a little bit later in the video. So one of the things that you can have is you'll notice that I've got the single histogram up here, and which actually shows the blended tonal range of the image, the RGB tone. You can actually set this to be the three different ones, the RGB colors separately as well. And so here you can see that I've switched the histogram to be RGB now. And you can see how it's affecting the colours, especially on this one. You can see that the green is much more predominant than the blue, for example. If we push the histogram to the right, you can see that all of our highlights are completely blown out. The value of the histogram in manual mode cannot be underestimated. And you can see this on my screen, it actually shows the representation. Not all screens do that, but this camera is particularly good at that. And if I pull it down to the left, increasing my shutter speed here, the dark areas are just so dark, there could be some recovery, but once you push it too far to the left, you're not really going to be able to recover anything. The little bar at the bottom, you can see the exposure value. If it's on 0, I'll just half depress the shutter. If it's on the center line there, that means that's where the camera is also metering as well. But I want to pull this down, and what we've got is we've got some really nice reflections with the spikes still in the histogram. So although we've pushed it to the left to the dark, actually the histogram is not blowing those out. So in post-production, we can actually recover those really well, and we should have minimal blowout on this image now. So let's capture that. So when shooting in manual, it's important to get a balanced histogram. As I already mentioned, if you overexpose, you get it blown out on the right. If you underexpose, you lose the detail in the shadows. It's really critical to try and balance that. And as you can see now, I've got a nicely balanced one. We've got 1/8 of a second, which will give me a little bit of blur. And what we've got is a little bit of water smoothing. Now we can start to get really creative here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set my shutter speed. I want to get a long shutter speed to really smooth that out. You can see that I've pushed it to 2.5 seconds. I might even push it a little bit further. I'm going to go to 5 seconds, I think. And I really want to pull that histogram back down. You can see now my aperture is at f25. I could have used a neutral density filter, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to use the exposure to show you how the exposure triangle really works brilliantly in your favor. And you can see that smoothed it out superbly now. And that's how you can start to be creative with using the manual mode. And here's my next image. Before I go down to the waterfalls, I noticed this flower at the side. You can see that at the moment, I've got no polarizer on now. We've got it at f5, 1/25th of a second at ISO 100. But this is where manual really comes into its own, because 1/25th, if I capture this image, there's a little bit of breeze, not a lot, but if I capture this image, we can see it's blurring the background really nicely for us. But if I go into that image and now zoom in on that, you can see that there's even though it's got 1/25th, there's a little bit of blur on that. So actually what I really want to do here is increase my shutter speed. So using the histogram again, I think I'm going to get it to 1/100th, but we've got a really dark image now. I can't get, on this lens, I cannot get my aperture lower than f5 at this zoom. This is where macro lenses, by the way, are absolutely invaluable, but I want to try and show you this, just how I can use this on a single lens without having to do that. So let's go into the ISO and set our ISO. So what I want to do, I can set it to auto. A lot of people use manual with auto ISO. But what I want to do is I want to have some control over the histogram. So I'm going to bring it up to about 400. You can see we're slightly over now, so that's really good. That is, it's given us ISO 400. We've got 1/100th of a second. Just wait for that strong breeze to just die down a little bit. And we've got the fly coming in as well. You can see the fly there. And now you can see that we're lovely, beautifully sharp. ISO 400 is absolutely excellent for this image. And that's the power of manual. And this is a pretty typical landscape scene that you may capture. It's got a beautiful stream, great reflection in the river. I've put the polarizer on now, so that'll enhance our reflection. We've got the trees arcing over the top to frame the top, and we've got the rocks in the foreground, providing us with some leading lines. So this is a pretty classic one. The challenge here is the high contrast on a sunny day. And today, it's around lunchtime, because I felt that that was a good time to show you. I know metering can be a little bit more accurate during golden hour, but actually, even then, you'll want to use manual. Trust me, once you start using manual, you'll never go back. So what I've done to capture the actual image is switch to portrait mode. I believe that the framing of the tree, the branch at the top, the rocks at the bottom, the leading lines create a superb image down this stream. So what I'm going to do is capture it initially in AV mode. Just let the evaluative meter in, capture that image. We'll see that, and you can see now that actually the sky and the reflection are completely blown out. So I'm going to switch this to manual mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to underexpose this, because what I want is I want this tree at the top to be silhouetted, and I want the rocks to be dark. I want the feature to be the river leading to the trees in the distance. I'm being super careful because my tripod is in the water and my foot is about 6 inches from the water. So you can see the histogram moving to the left. I don't mind if there's a little bit of brightness in the sky, but what I really want is these rocks to be dark and this tree to be silhouetted. By pushing the histogram all the way to the left, what we're really going to do is darken that image down and really be able to silhouette that image. I do hope that all of this has made sense, why and how I use manual for 80 to 90% of my images, and how to get creative when using manual. If you have found it useful, please remember to like, give it that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Your support is massively appreciated, and please remember to check out some of my other videos. And also, I'd be intrigued to know how you get on if you're either going into manual, whether you're being more creative with manual. Just interested to know how you get on, so feel free to drop a comment below. And until next time, thank you very much for your time in watching this video, and I will see you soon.